Clint. What's up, dude? Dude, I'm super pumped. This is gonna be fun.
This will be fun, right?
How's
life?
It's good. I know, man. We tried to get together like, I don't know, last year sometime.
It's always
I know.
a pain. Was it my fault?
Yeah. I was gonna ask.
Sorry. Are you a runner?
I'm a little
You
bit
look like
of
you run,
everything.
man.
Dude,
Yeah.
I used to run a lot, and then I had a series of 5 leg surgeries
Oh, my
starting in
word.
2018. I'll spare you the drama, but I'm like lucky to have a left leg right
Oh,
now.
wow.
And so I still bike. I do a lot of rock climbing.
Oh, very cool.
Anything outdoorsy, I'm
Yeah.
in, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, snowboard, ski,
That's
anything to
sweet.
try to. It's my counterbalance to sitting behind a tech desk all day long and doing computer
Right.
work.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Kind of gotta have that, right?
Yeah.
Or it's go crazy a little bit.
Are we going? We're good. Tell us what's going on with the Alianza, man. Like
Oh my gosh,
everything you're working on.
where do you want to start? It's
don't
been
know.
quite the journey.
Yeah, you guys just acquired something, right?
Yeah, so we just bought a competitor called
Okay.
Metaswitch, which
Yeah.
was Microsoft's voice core business. Really cool transaction, something we've been working on for quite some time. I'd say it's the fruition of a lot of little choices over many years compounding, put us in a position to make that deal happen, but super excited.
What goes into like buying a competitor, going in through those acquisitions? I assume it's like a acquisition, also acqui-hire. You're taking some of the talent. and
Yeah,
things like
100%.
that.
I mean, it's a full-blown acquisition. So when Microsoft, I mean, this goes back, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think, like almost a little more than 2.5 years, we made an unsolicited inbound offer to Microsoft to buy the business. And they kind of laughed us out of the room. They thought we were crazy. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, no, this business is core to what we do. These customers are strategic for us. And we just kind of pitched a thesis that said we could do this business better than you can. And you would stand to benefit from it if we build it in Azure.
Mhm.
And they kind of said, thanks, but no thanks. We're really focused on AI, the Sam Altman, a big
Mhm.
investment with OpenAI. And they said, this would be like more trouble than it's worth to try to spin this out. Microsoft's really great at buying companies, not really great at divesting.
Right.
And then 2 years went by and we would kind of just keep in touch. Hey, are you ready yet? Like, what's going on with this business? Here's what we saw inside the business. We'd win a customer from them here and there and just lob kind of inquiries back in. And eventually got the call on June 3rd last year from the corporate VP overall of Azure that said, hey, we're ready to do this deal now.
Oh, wow.
Are you guys still interested?
That's
and
incredible.
it was like a big hell yes, let's go.
Yeah.
And so we thought they were going to go really fast. And we learned really quickly that Microsoft's definition of fast and our definition of fast were two
Yeah.
very different things.
Yeah.
And it took us another, 6 months to get the deal done, which felt excruciating. And then another 3 months to actually close the transaction. But it's done, closed and announced a little month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Now we're in full blown kind of operation and integration mode, which is a blast. I love it.
It might, I mean, I know what you do, but give everybody a sense for like what Alianza does.
Okay, Alianza, the best way for me to describe it is the company that you probably use every day, many times a day, and you would never know us. We like to say we're behind the communications brand that you know and trust and use every day. What that means is if you think about the big broadband operators globally, and what I'm talking about when I say broadband is I'm talking about your mobile phone operator,
Mhm.
your service provider that you buy service
Mhm.
from. So in the US, it's AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile.
Mhm.
If we're talking about business services and landlines, it's companies like Lumen and Comcast and Charter Communications. These companies are network builders, whether that's wireless network or fiber networks, cable networks, satellite broadband networks, you name it. If a company is delivering broadband and data access to a consumer business, they're a target customer of ours.
Mhm.
And for many decades, these companies built infrastructure inside of their data centers with third-party solution providers to facilitate things like phone calls, text messages, and video meetings. Alianza is the cloud-based alternative to those legacy hardware and software-based solutions. We do about somewhere around 1 trillion phone calls every year will be processed over our network.
That must be wild to take in every once in a while,
Dude,
isn't it?
It's so cool. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
If you think about some of our European customers now, British Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, our software powers the national infrastructure for their emergency services networks.
Wow.
We think about what we do in terms of our purpose being to create a more connected world, which is something that at this stage of the game for Alianza, I think, I'll opine on this for a second, but you start a company and you go through different phases of why, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're arriving at this point in Alianza where we're really leaning into our purpose and this notion of creating a more connected world at a point in time where it feels like there's a lot of gravitational pulls that are creating separation between individuals and bigger gaps in societies than used to exist. And we feel like in some small way, Alianza is a part of bringing the world closer together. I think like real conversations, like conversation we're having face to face, real voice conversations have tremendous power to bring us back together at a point when we're more polarized as a society than ever.
How long have you been doing this?
Going on 21 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
That's
That's incredible, man, by the way. Congrats. Holy crap.
I don't know if it's like congrats or condolences or like a little bit of
Probably
crazy,
both.
but
Yeah.
it feels awesome. Like I feel like we're finally finding our stride. Like I tell people, like we've been doing this for 21 years. I'm having an absolute blast. I'm having the best time I've ever had at Alianza. I wouldn't trade it for anything. This notion of serial entrepreneurship feels foreign to me. I'm like, find one thing that I'm really passionate about and stick with it.
Yeah.
In sports, we talk about like the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, look, you can't really master something until you've done it for 10,000 hours. And if you think about it in a professional perspective, most entrepreneurs would work over 40 hours a week. But let's say you work 40 hours a week. That's 5 years before you kind of master something. And yet most VCs like to think about investments in 5 to 7 year cycles.
Yeah.
Right. Invest out of this vintage fund, give it 5 to 7 years to run maturity, and we repay to LPs. I think that actually does a really big service to a lot of entrepreneurial journeys that take time to mature.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we're on to something pretty special. And if I look around at other large scaled Utah success stories, it just takes time.
Takes forever.
Yeah. I mean, I think for every divvy that's an outlier, there's a Qualtrics that took, 16 or 17 years to get to file for IPO. There's an Entrada that took, they've been around for 22, 23 years now.
Divvy is so rare. I don't even know that I could think of another company like that, either in Utah or out, honestly, that started and within 5 years exited at $2.5 billion. That's pretty wild.
It's crazy. And there's an argument.
There's a stroke of luck to that too, for sure.
100%.
But the Incredible by Blake and Alex and the whole team, it's unbelievable.
It's an amazing story of right time, right place. I like the notion that the harder we work, the luckier we get. Because there is some luck and market timing that you can't foresee that drives success. And I think we should never read too much into our success or too much into our failures.
Yeah.
A lot of it's outside of our control. But certainly they put themselves in a position to win. But I think there's also there's exit and then there's building a durable company.
Yeah.
I think there's sometimes we conflate those two. Yeah. And I think at Alianza, we've been doing this long enough that we understand what building a durable, long-standing business that has Utah roots and global reach looks like, and getting really passionate about what comes next.
You're building a generational company, which is rare for 100%. Utah. It's very rare for Utah to build what you're building. Qualtrics may end up being that, right? They've gone through a lot of transactions, but they're still here, all that type of stuff. So
totally,
I think, that's going to be a piece of it. Feels like Entrada, Alianza, but there's not a lot.
There's not. And I think Utah could do better at this. We're really great at starting companies.
Starting and selling.
And selling. And I think the next kind of level, the next step up for Utah is going from start to scale to global reach, and staying let's make Utah the company that has brands that are known around the world, but have Utah roots.
So obviously one of the challenges of that is VC, which you brought up.
Yeah.
Which is they need an exit somehow, go public or sell this thing. And going public, nobody goes public these days.
Yeah, not these days. Now
that'll come back probably.
Yeah,
but
there's a question of liquidity and then building the business. I think you have to kind of find investors and maybe team members that are willing to commit to a journey and a purpose that outlasts them even. And finding the best path forward for the company. We've been really fortunate with some great, very patient, very supportive investors from day one.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. How did you fund the business to start?
Yeah, geez. Started the business out of the BYU business plan competition, spring of 2005. And first round of funding was a couple professors that came to me, folks that ran the business plan competition. After we won, came and said, Brian, we don't run the business plan competition as an academic exercise. We want you to actually go into the market and launch this business. It's good for the business school. It's good for, giving back once you've gone and built, come back and teach students. And so they wrote an article with me that we put in the Daily Universe, the BYU paper. And we kind of put my phone number at the bottom, and they said, wait for the phone to ring. And I was like, what is this going to work? And they're like, yeah, just wait. So we did. And sure enough, the phone rang. And between people that were just genuinely interested in what we were doing, understood a little bit about kind of what I'll call Alianza 1.0 looked like. And then friends and family and neighbors and anywhere we could kind of scrape money together, we did our first round of financing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that makes me think of a few things, actually. And one is like just how great BYU is as an incubator of startups and entrepreneurs and things like that. Like, where else would you get that? Like, hey, we want you to leave, like, go build this.
Yeah. I mean, I think BYU, especially in early 2000s, was unique in this sense. I think, UVU certainly building great entrepreneurship centers, great at kind of tech commercialization, different ways of pulling ideas out of different spots of the university and pulling them through the School of Entrepreneurship. But BYU certainly got something special there.
So after you raise that initial round, how long do you go before you have to raise again?
Man, Clint, this is a really interesting story. This is where I have like a little bit of trauma, if you want to unpack it with me.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll be your therapist, man.
Okay, this is 2005. We raised our first round, called a Series A. It's $2 million. Yeah. A year later, 2006, we'd scaled the business really nicely by those terms. I mean, I think we'd kind of gone from zero to maybe, $1 million or $1.5 million kind of run rate. Thought, all right, there's something here. We should go harder. Went and raised a $4 million round led by what at the time was V-Spring Capital, one of the first Utah based venture capitalists in Utah. I mean, there's only
now sprung a few
it's kind of
funds outside of it, but that's a lot of people like you got Greg Warnock in there, you got Paul Alstrom in there.
Gavin.
I think Gavin, he was like an associate there or something of that nature. Yeah. You got the Signal Peak guys, which might actually be
100%.
Is that what V-Spring is? Like,
so Scott Petty's still there, which is on
Scott
member
Petty,
of our board, which has been fantastic for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the V-Spring story is really cool. Somebody needs to like tell the honest version of that because it's wild.
Totally. Paul Alstrom was there at the time too. I mean, some great early supporters of Alianza. And so they led our Series B, $4 million round. And then we got 2 more years down the road and said, all right, business is continuing to scale. Let's raise a Series C. Had a Series C from, remember, if you're following the math, 2005 Series A, 2006 Series B. 2 years later, beginning of 2008, we're raising Series C. We get term sheets signed. We get definitive docs drafted. We get those signed. We're celebrating. All we got to do is capital call, deposit checks, send wires. And capital call happens at the investor, deal doesn't fund. Capital call, they're like, hey, just give us another week. Give us another week. Happened twice. Showed up at board meeting, tail between their legs, and said, things are falling apart in the market. We can't call capital from our LPs. We can't fund the deal.
This is when the recession, right
in that time period is when I think like the Sequoia kind of doomsday letter came out that was like, this is not your typical recession.
Yeah, good times are over, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That was the title of it. Good times are over. And all of a sudden we went back out to market to like, all right, how do we do this?
Or RIP Good Times, sorry. Just for those who want to Google it.
Yeah. Google it. It's a great read. Like it's a great education, especially for younger entrepreneurs that haven't lived through what I would call a really hard recession. People think it's hard to fundraise now. No, go back to 2008, 2009, early 2010. It was Death Valley. Like it was super difficult. And so we had some other dynamics going on inside the business that were really difficult. And we made the decision to essentially fire sale the business. And we had a couple partners that we were working with. We ended up selling the business to AT&T. At the time, the business was, and the purpose of the original business plan that we were funded on was about we were really an early pioneer in doing voice over IP direct to enterprise. And we were out competing with the broadband service providers, kind of over the top of their networks. And we ended up selling the business to AT&T in late 2009, closed that transaction. And AT&T, right before we closed, came back to us and said, hey, we love the brand you've built. It was actually, we were branded under the name Get Phone at the time, under the Alianza umbrella. We really want the team. We want your sales team. We want the channel you've built, your people. We want the customer base, but we don't want your intellectual property. We don't want the platform. We're actually going to move this to our own Cisco-based platform inside the company. Your platform's just not quite mature enough. And we said, awesome, we'll keep the IP. And they said, in exchange, we'd also like to sign a licensing agreement for you to operate the platform for us for 6 months while we move the customers from your platform to ours. Well, 6 months turned into 6 years. They always had some other priority, something else going on. And so essentially they became our first service provider customer. And we were essentially powering this platform that we were hosting on their behalf. And that was when the idea was born. Like, hey, if we can do this for them, why can't we just multi-tenant this platform and start licensing it to other service providers? And let's be an arms dealer that powers global communication. So that was, 2010, 2011. And it's just been a slow and steady ride since then.
It's amazing that must have saved the company, right? Like to get that through, and then for them to not take the IP must have been
kind of a huge gift. Like when I talk about luck, like and things like pivots and things happening to us that we don't quite understand at the time. This was one of them. That like thing about ball bounces your way. Yeah.
I just like she'll do everything except for like the thing that's gonna have the most value.
100%.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Now the other side of that, and why I said there's some trauma in it. We ended up, if you go back to our Series B, about halfway through the Series B to Series C, when we knew we were going to raise a Series C, our investors, in conjunction with the executive team, kind of said, "Hey, we need a little bit more. We need a little bit more time, a little bit more ramp. We got a couple big benchmarks we want to hit before we go out and raise our Series C." So our current investors, including VSpring, started bridging into that Series C round. By the time the Series C round had fallen apart, we had probably 8 bridge loans outstanding.
Wow.
And then from the time the Series C fell apart until the time we actually raised our Series C, another 17 bridge loans. Okay. Another dozen small equity investments. I mean, Clint, when I say, like, we call it the death march period at Alianza, when it was like every month was going back hat in hand. Are you willing to keep us in business? Are you willing to keep funding this business? And really, I mean, we had some really hard discussions along the way, and a lot of, like, I'll say, chess games with investors, and different classes and cohorts of investors. But somehow, like, we managed that and we came out on the other side of it, not unscathed, but I would say experienced in a new realm of funding and business survival that I hadn't experienced or kind of read about before.
Did you have to raise after that, or have you?
Yeah, we did. We ended up going on to raise a couple more rounds of capital.
Okay.
And then culminating with this deal we just did, raised a pretty substantial round of capital led by Wells Fargo.
Give us a sense for how big the company is. How many employees do you have?
Yeah, so just shy of 700 employees now in 20 countries around the world.
Yeah.
Customers in 81 countries. So almost everywhere where, you would ever find yourself on vacation or making a phone call outside of Russia, China, North Korea, and a couple other handful of companies or countries. You landed and turned on your phone and made a phone call, you'd hit our software somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's incredible what you've built. It's pretty wild. And 700 employees, particularly in today's day and age, is a lot of employees, man.
It's a lot.
That's
of
like
employees.
2,000 back in. Yeah. Like that's the equivalent of like a 2,000 person company like 5 years ago.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting in life. I have a big family too. I have 6 kids, ranging from 8 to 18. And people look at us and they're like, 6 kids, and we'll be like, yeah. And 6 is the new 10.
Yeah.
Like 6 kids today is like raising 10 kids like 30 years ago. Right. And it's like that at Alianza. It feels like that sometimes. Then you kind of exacerbate that by the geographical reach of the company. It's not like having 700 all at HQ, which is kind of pretty manageable. We're spread out across 20 countries. And now you got cultural differences and time zone differences and just so many different. It's actually one of the things I think makes us really great. One of our kind of, when we talk about our statement on belonging at Alianza for employees, and you have to think about that type of diversity, our statement on belonging really focuses on, like, we want a workforce that to the greatest extent possible represents the scope of humanity we serve with our product, which is everybody. Right. And so really trying to be as inclusive as possible has been really important to us. And I think turned into one of our superpowers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. How are you thinking about AI, and how is that entering into all of this?
So love this question. I think that what we call, we talked about almost 1 trillion phone calls a year flowing through our software, connecting the world one step behind the scenes. When we think about the content of conversations, we like to call that conversational data. Conversational data is one of the last data frontiers that's been untapped. Right? You think about every other element of our digital experience, whether it's location data, social media, what we put out there in the world is all somehow mined and monetized.
Yeah.
And there's value created on it, with the exception of this like really sacred conversation that takes place between humans. We feel a high degree of stewardship over that conversation that we power, but we also think there's tremendous opportunity at the confluence of that conversation and AI to drive value in the human experience.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. My wife runs a flower shop called Sunnyside Urban Farms in PG. Actually, it's right next to our home in Linden. She has a phone with a business phone number that rings when people call. She misses 90% or more of her phone calls because she's out in the field, she's picking flowers, she's meeting with customers. We think about the ability to have an AI agent answer that phone call, take an order, place an order, fulfill an order, record the call, and drive a customer experience when the business owner isn't there as meaningful. And we think that's kind of phase 1 of what I'll call kind of how AI influences conversations.
Right.
Phase 2 of that is where my wife can actually have a real life conversation with her AI agent and ask it questions like, hey, based on the content of all the conversations over our communications network of the last 6 months, what are the flower trends I should be thinking about for next year? It's really interesting. Flowers come in and out of style, just like clothes do in fashion, right? There's certain colors that
is interesting.
There's wedding colors this year that would be like absolutely obnoxious if those were your wedding colors 10 years ago. And so think about like fashion coming through and being able to like get on the leading edge of that by asking what are people asking about? What types of flowers, what colors of flowers are people asking about that we're not stocking enough of? When do we have to turn customers away? She might ask questions like, based on the content of those conversations, which of my employees gives the best customer experience? What could I train my employees on to give better customer experience? All sorts of insights on businesses around inventory, customer experience, employee experience. It was interesting. I was talking with Ryan Smith a few weeks ago about this amazing business they built at Qualtrics around experience management. And but in order to really drive experience management, you have to ask questions today. We think where this is going and where the future of this is being able to understand the human experience without ever asking a question to a human, because we know the data. We're putting metadata tags on conversations. Of course, like I said, we feel a high degree of responsibility to be kind of what I'll call trusted curators of that data.
Sure.
But being able to understand the human experience in greater detail and human sentiment on a global scale is something that I find quite intriguing right now. And the opportunity to do that in conjunction with our customers and their end users and kind of navigate this path into a world where we could drive real-time insights into human sentiment is fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's remarkable. How are you using AI internally, just like to manage the business?
Yeah, awesome. I would say like every aspect of our business feels like it's being touched by this in some form or fashion. Everything from how we operate the platform, the monitoring of the platform, how we do quality assurance testing, how we're doing things like code regression testing that are creating, I would say, faster, speed of development, quality of development, less bugs released into production, faster resolution when we do release a bug into production. But also we think about how AI is influencing how we work every day, how people jumpstart processes, whether it's writing a job description, interviewing a candidate, writing a presentation, writing a press release. I mean, I don't think there's, the human side of this is always going to polish and finish and do kind of what I'll call the finished work on the product. But having an AI assistant that you can kind of, throw up a chat GPT, give it 4 or 5 bullet points, have it scrub your website, scrub the internet for stories that have been written about you, and come back and give me a great starting point on this press release or this blog or some article I want to write. boom. Like it gives us.
It actually is so remarkable. It's like magic. It's wild.
Yeah.
Can you believe like we're here? Like, and by the way, this is, as a lot of people say, this isn't like a unique thing to say, but this is the worst it's ever going to be. And it's pretty freaking amazing right now.
If when I look at AI and quantum computing and kind of Moore's law, and you think about how all these things are coming together, the future's like more exciting and maybe a little bit more scary than it's ever been before. And it'll be really interesting to watch kind of how the human experience unfolds.
What do we do about all these spam calls? You're somebody I can ask about this.
Yes. You should 100% ask me about it.
Yes. Like, man, I look at my phone throughout the day.
Yeah.
And luckily, I think my phone has now started to track and realize if it's spam or not. But I see like 20 missed calls. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. Look, the number one thing that we can do as consumers when a spam call comes in is we can mark that as, on my iPhone, I think it says like block and report or something, like click that. Like we need to blacklist those guys, right? But we need that information. They're finding really creative ways to kind of go around, I'd say, the standard mechanisms for identifying spam, but block and report helps all of us at kind of one or two layers up in the network identify who the bad players are and stop it. And I think what you're going to see over the next 3 or 4 years is a massive improvement where AI helps eliminate what I'll call fraudulent calls, spam calls, phone fraud, massive problem for elderly globally. I think we're right in the middle of like AI really adding tremendous value in those areas.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
Yeah.
It's for those who, haven't been a founder and built a business for 21 years, which is like nobody. Like again, like that's why it's so incredible. Like it's like you, Ryan Smith. You could say Josh has been working on, through Omniture and Domo about that long. Like there's not actually too many people here in the state who have done this, right? Yeah. And you're still there. Like you're still going. You're still doing this thing. So what advice would you have for founders? I think of Utah as almost like the founder capital of the world, right? Like we're really good at founding companies. We talked about that earlier. Like we're good at starting things, right?
Yeah.
What advice do you have for founders?
I guess, this question is not one that I like prepared for in advance, but if I were to speak off the cuff, Clint, I would say number one, be patient with yourself. Allow yourself space to learn and grow. Like what I love about the entrepreneurial journey is it is at its core a journey about self-growth, discovery, learning. And sometimes we measure that with dollars and cents on P&Ls and balance sheets. And I think there's a learning element of this that we often overlook as a leading indicator of financial success that will come. So being patient with ourselves is like number one. Number two, and I'm speaking from my personal experience, stick with it. Like there is power, influence, capability, all compound over time. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And I am stunned at the number of entrepreneurs that I talk with that kind of hit that 4, 5, 6 year barrier and things get really hard and they tap out. And they're just like, oh, it's tough. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go start something else. Instead of like, if you really believe, if you have conviction, stick with it. Like keep going. And on the conviction part, I guess it'd lead me maybe third point of advice. Surround yourself with really great mentors and people. And mentors aren't always kind of the gray-haired mentors that have been there and done that before. It could be smart peers, but people that have a balance of what I would call honesty, honest enough to tell you the truth, but if they view you like pressure test your ideas, kind enough to spend time with you and really understand where you're at with your business. There is something really powerful that happens when other smart people, other talented people that have been there and done that, spend time to look at your story, look at your strategy and validate it. Like for me, I know there's one of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur is self-doubt. Like thinking like when they say it's lonely at the top, it is absolutely true. There are times over the course of Alianza's history when there are topics that are off limits to anybody but the man inside my head. Right? Like topics I can't talk about with my board. I can't talk about with my executive team. Can't talk about at home because it's like you're trying to manage so many different competing interests. Having folks that in those dark moments, dark night of the soul, you can really like reach out to, ask for advice, ask for somebody to pressure test it, when somebody else from the outside that doesn't have the same cognitive biases you have, same confirmation bias, will look at it from the outside, disinterested, and say, I think you got something here. Like, keep going. For me, that's been a tremendous support over the years.
I think about this a lot, how we attach our identity to what we're building, like to our company. Like, you are Alianza, or like I am Silicon Slopes. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
That's like so dangerous when you start attaching our identity to it.
100%, I agree with you. Like, I talk a lot about this notion of, in fact, I talked about in our last all hands meeting last week, stood up in front of everybody. I said, look, I genuinely hope that Alianza represents the best place you will ever spend in your entire professional career. But someday, all of us will leave this company, me included, you included. Maybe it's when we retire. Maybe it's next week when something comes along that's so compelling that you're just like, I love my time at Alianza, it's been great, but I got to go take a chance on what's next. And I said, look, whether it's next week or 20 years from now, we'll all eventually exit this business. When that day happens, we got to make sure that like we have something else in life that underpins what we do professionally. I mean, look, if any of us that are in the tech industry in Utah, especially, spend any time on LinkedIn reading, it can be both inspiring and discouragingly dangerous. Right?
I would actually say it's mostly discouragingly dangerous. I don't know how inspiring. I may be super jaded though.
Yeah. Look, I think my network is probably like different on LinkedIn than a lot of Utah tech entrepreneurs because our customer base is so global. So
right.
And the messages that I follow and the folks that I follow look more like our customers than local Utah teams. But even within those local Utah teams, there is this overemphasized badge of honor that comes with being a tech founder and entrepreneur. And I think like finding your why that spans beyond work is really important. I'll like double click down on that for a second. Like this notion of like connecting with people is something that I've found permeates other elements of my life. So to the extent that when my last day at Alianza happens, my personal mission to create impact in people's lives and to connect people in meaningful ways will continue in other aspects of life. You know, one area that I'm like really passionate about that I get to exercise that in is Utah County Search and Rescue, which is just a team of like, I think some of the absolute best people on earth that are 100% volunteers that on occasion, like 160 times last year, will get a page on their iPhone or their Android device saying, hey, somebody out there is having what potentially looks like the worst day of their life. And if you could come help us, that would be really awesome.
Yeah.
And we're not obligated to go to everyone. There's not a schedule we keep. But the way the numbers work out, we always have enough people that show up out of a team of 50 or 55 people. We get enough that show up with the right skills to help somebody, whether they're having a crisis on Mount Timpanogos or out on Utah Lake, out in West Desert or up on Maple Mountain. Yeah. Like you name it. And for me, that is like, there's like an absolute privilege and a pleasure to be able to show up, have camaraderie with a really close-knit group of people that just wants to help somebody else, and then be able to hopefully connect with somebody in a way that makes their life better.
And it seems like they live for it. Like, do you live for like that rescue?
I will say
moment?
Like there is kind of a little bit of dopamine hit we look forward to when we hear that specific chime come through the phone. And there will be times you're like right now where team members will kind of have these text message threads and we're like, I'm so ready for a call out this weekend. Like sun's out, sky's blue. And it's a little bit, we're a little bit torn because on one side you're like, hey, no call outs mean that everybody's good out there.
Yeah.
Like things are good. All is well in Happy Valley.
Yeah.
But then there's also part of it. It's like, dude, we're ready to help. Like we want to get out. There's kind of this itch to like get together with your teammates because they're just such great people.
What are the common calls? It's like somebody gets stuck up in a mountain, on side by sides or hiking or something like that.
Yeah, we do a little bit of everything. So we do springtime, especially like this time of year, we'll do work where people get up high in the Wasatch Mountains between Lone Peak on the north, Nebo on the south. We do a ton on Timpanogos. This time of year, people get up there and there's
stuck in the snow.
They get stuck in the snow.
I've done this. I've actually done this exactly. Yeah. I've actually gotten stuck in the snow in the side by side around this time of year.
Yeah, totally. Like it's well-meaning people that just aren't fully prepared or aware of what they're getting into.
Because it's so beautiful down here. You think it's beautiful up there.
Totally.
It's still winter. It's still winter.
And we got to remember last week when we had a snowstorm in the valley, right? Like this is one of the great things about springtime in Utah is it can be springtime and 80 one day and the next day it's 30 and snowing. So just catch a lot of people off guard. So, and then we'll do like everything from kind of the Alex Honnold wannabes that are free soloing on the side of, between Upper Falls and Bridalveil or something, get stuck. And they're like, all right, like now I'm having my kind of, oh crap moment. I need help. Heat exhaustion, injuries. There's a lot of what I'd call like fairly minor things. And then sometimes it is absolutely life threatening.
Yeah.
And sometimes it turns into a recovery operation.
Yeah.
And even in those moments, like we find purpose in bringing closure and
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What drove you to be a part of that?
Oh man. I think really early on. So when I was at BYU, I did not want to go into communications technology. I wanted to do like outdoor rec. Like that was my thing. I worked at REI. And then I worked at Timpanogos Cyclery on, in Pleasant Grove on Main Street back in the day.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, I'd work on bikes. And in the wintertime, I'd work on skis and snowboards. I'd work on the climbing wall. I'd sell outdoor gear. I don't know if you ever walk into an REI, it's like a special place. Like the smell of it, like there's something about it. It's just like, it feels like adventure. The anticipation of what that store represents and the experiences I'm going to have is like something really special to me. And I loved being outside. I think Utah's, of all of the metro areas in the world, Utah's just such a special place.
Oh, we're so lucky.
We walk outside and we turn east and we look at the mountains, and there's nowhere else that type of like urban hub, international airport, great, amazing economy, a startup ecosystem, and mountains like the Wasatch Front exist.
Yeah.
And so
they're right next to us. It's not like Denver where you got to go over an hour to get to the mountains. It's like, they're right there. Dude, you're like in them in 10 minutes.
100% from Alianza's parking lot in Pleasant Grove to the base of Sundance, where we keep like corporate ski passes in the winter for team members to go out. It's 22 minutes. Yeah. It's like, where else on earth can you do this?
That's so wild. It's actually so cool.
And so people will take a long lunch break and go up and get 4 runs in, grab lunch, come back and be in the office. Just a great way to like disconnect, connect with a coworker in a different way, and then be back at the office and continue your day. Just
absolutely
can't happen anywhere else. So I was working outdoor rec. And then I stumbled into this Alianza thing, and kind of got sucked into the entrepreneurial journey. And just like I said, the intellectual challenge of it was just so invigorating. The autonomy, the creativity, the ability to put your hands on the steering wheel of a company, come in every day and ask yourself, what can I do today to make the biggest impact on this company, was just quite invigorating.
Yeah.
But I also lost touch with part of me that had passion for the outdoors. And that kind of time spent behind a computer, in a boardroom, on a plane, in a conference room, at a hotel, got to the point where I kind of was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like I'm missing a part of me that added a lot of joy and fulfillment to my life. And so in 2021, kind of made the decision, it's now or never. Like I'm not getting any younger. Applied, went through kind of a year's worth of training. They do this new member evaluation at the end. It's kind of like, final boot camp test. Passed, got accepted onto the team. And it has been, I'd say, like one of the great pleasures of my life, actually.
So what all do you got to do for that year? You got to like...
Oh my gosh. So during that year, you have to go to 40% of all call outs. You have to go to 2 trainings a month on Saturdays that are skills trainings. You have to go to 2 trainings on Thursday nights. I think when we did it was Thursday nights. So 4 trainings a month, learning all about how we do the work we do. One of the things that makes Utah County Search and Rescue, I think one of the best search and rescue teams in the country, is there are no heroes on the team. There's no like nobody on the team that we show up to a call out and we're like, everybody turns and looks at this person and says, okay, go do your thing. Like,
like in the movies. It's like, we got a leader.
Yeah. What makes the team great is it is a team. And I've learned just as much about amazing teamwork doing search and rescue as I have doing Alianza in 20 years. The way we come together, everybody playing their part, nobody caring who gets the credit, but knowing that like what makes us great is the collective whole.
It's unpaid too. Am I accurate in saying that?
Not only unpaid,
but you're putting your own resources.
You pay it. I mean, I think the first year is $4,000 or $5,000 worth of gear you have to go get in order to just be able to participate, to be able to function as a member of the team. You got to load up with gear. So it is really like an investment to be able to serve and show up in your community in a way that's meaningful. Yeah.
That's actually so cool.
It's a riot, man. I love it.
So is that kind of like how you've been able to maintain balance? Because I also think, like we were talking earlier about tying your identity to like your company and like if your company's doing well, you're doing well. If your company's doing poorly, you're doing poorly.
Yeah.
Which is so unhealthy.
So unhealthy.
Both sides of that.
And we have people on search and rescue that have been there for 40 years. I mean, people that founded the team, that it has become part of their identity. And I remember like one of the first weeks of training, my trainer, a guy named Greg Beveridge, stands in front of our group of like 9-10 new members and said, look, make sure that search and rescue becomes what you do, not who you are. He's like, and I grabbed onto that and use it in other areas of my life because I just love it. That's like, I mean, we're all on kind of this search for identity and what makes us who we are. And I think if we attach that to things that are transient, we're in trouble when those transient things end. And it's painful. It's like challenging to kind of figure out your bearings again. But if you can find what makes you who you are along the path, then life circumstances can change and you just kind of keep plowing forward.
Do you worry about mental health crisis? Like, did you experience anything like that with employees or going through that through COVID and coming out of COVID? It seems like, and founders, obviously, like you said, there are some things you can only talk about to yourself in your head, right? And so that gets kind of lonely and interesting. What have you done to manage that both in your company and just personally?
Yeah, I think, so I'll hit personally first. Like, I think there's certainly challenges in life that I've been through that have caused really deep anxiety and difficulty, actually completely unrelated to work. But just going through, for me, it's faith transition, changes and things that I kind of gave my life to, gave my identity to. Sure. I mean, it's actually like really germane to this topic.
And then, we're really good at that in Utah.
Yeah. Really and then kind of unpacking that at a point in life where I really wanted to get the most out of my spiritual journey in life and realizing that the path I'd chosen was not everything I thought it was. At a point in time when my identity was absolutely wrapped up in that. That was kind of probably like, for me, when I think about mental health, kind of the lowest time in the last, probably my entire life, hardest thing I've been through. And then I think about how like connection has helped me come out of that. Like I like to talk about the prophet of Brene Brown, like, and talking about like, man, if Brene ran a church, I'd go to that church. Like I love listening to her talk, about, authenticity. And real connection, being vulnerable, has a way of lifting our souls, like letting go of the masks we put on and trying to pretend we're something, and just like finding environments where we can just be exactly who we are and still be accepted for that is a powerful thing. And so we've tried to create that at work, like tried to create these environments of, when we focus a lot on psychological safety, about I love your notion of it's just as much about the chances we give as the chances we take. Right. It's something along those lines. I talk about that at work. I'm like, hey, if we create this environment of psychological safety where employees are empowered to take chances, even when they're wrong, they're celebrated as a learning experience, as something that, and we fall forward, we don't fall down. If you can inculcate that into your culture, you got something special going on there. And I think we've kind of harnessed that at Alianza, where we have employees that really, truly feel safe to not just do their day job, but to take chances, to push the company forward in meaningful ways, to do things that personally fulfill them and give them a sense of accomplishment and meaning and belonging in a professional way. Super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, that is incredible. Finally, where do you think we're at in Utah tech community? I mean, you've been through since 21 years. So we're talking like 2005, 2004 timeframe. It's wildly different since then. What does it look like? What does that kind of look like for you to kind of experience all of that difference? And where do you think we're headed? Kind of a loaded question.
So many different aspects of that. I'll start with kind of where we're headed. I don't think there's a better time to be an entrepreneur than right now. I look at things like access to capital, access to talent, access to learning, and kind of accelerating your ability to be a successful entrepreneur. All of those all-time highs. I also think it's like, in some ways, it's more difficult because of the comparison, like because of the expectations we have of ourselves, which in so many ways are unrealistically high. We live in a culture that optimizes for instant gratification. I mean, you think about whether it's 40 characters or a LinkedIn post or a TikTok, like we can't handle, I think the average like attention span on TikTok is something like 6 seconds, right? YouTube, et cetera. And I think like what I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be is just patience, stick-to-itiveness, grit, thoughtfulness in an environment where as humans feels like we're more and more becoming programmed to move from one thing to another, to context shift quickly. When business success oftentimes requires deep strategic thought, debate, argument, constructive contention to try to create enough turbulence where the best ideas rise to the top. Creating a team that'll sit in that, wallow in that with you, get through the hard stuff is just, I think, a big challenge for young entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, I'm going to ask you, since you brought it up, because you're right. We do talk a lot about the chances one gives versus the chances one takes, and the importance of, it's just important to give as many chances as you take. Right.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, who gave you a chance to get you to where you are today?
My dad is the first one that comes to mind for me. My dad was a tech entrepreneur, a telecom entrepreneur, like moved our family around from Utah to Washington State to Texas, back to Utah, all before I was a freshman in high school. I don't think I went to the same school twice until I was a sophomore in high school. Wow. And kind of we struggled. And I learned from my dad, who came from a family of 12 kids, Idaho potato farmer, dirt poor. I learned how to work hard. I learned, my dad constantly talked about the American dream, being an entrepreneur, owning his own destiny, authoring his own story. Nobody more important to me than my dad. My dad gave me my first chance, and not just my first chance, but encouraged me and inspired me to take a chance on my own, to venture out. So yeah, 100%. And then number two for me is my wife. My wife's freaking amazing. The fact that we got married in August of 2004. Dropped out of.
So she's been with you through the entire.
She's
journey.
Never known anything different. We were kind of incubating Alianza in fall of 2004. I'm a senior at BYU and enter the business plan competition after taking the entrepreneur lecture series at BYU twice, because I just loved the class. I was like, look, I'm not getting credit the second time, but I just love the stories and the lectures that come in.
It's the best class in college.
It really is the absolute best class. You sit on the 7th floor of the Tanner building, this amazing view of Timpanogos out, all these massive glass windows. And it's just, the setting is amazing. And then the entrepreneurs that come in and tell their stories were just so inspiring. And so we're kind of incubating Alianza through that fall of 2004. Spring semester 2005, professor comes in and says, hey, there's this business plan competition. We're giving away $64,000 in cash and prizes coming out of this. And if you write a business plan, you get out of taking the final. And I was like, well, I'm not even getting credit for this class, but I got an idea and I'm going to throw it in there. And at the time, my wife's in school. We're both in school full time. I'm taking the GMAT. I'm thinking about going to business school. Mm-hmm. I do well enough on the GMAT. I think I can get into some of the top tier schools that I'd applied to. And then we won the business plan competition. And then a couple of my professors, John Richards, Gary Williams, came to me and were like, hey, we want you to start this business. We're willing to help you.
It was John?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
John has been, I should add John to that list, honestly. If there was somebody that's helped me, encouraged me through many dark days, John comes to mind immediately.
And for those who are listening or watching, John Richards, legendary professor at BYU, obviously taught at UVU for a while and now runs Startup Ignition.
Yeah.
Right. Which is kind of the same thing he was doing at those places.
Yeah. And just, like I said, chances we give. John's given me a lot of chances, a lot of advice, a lot of confidence to step into the void, keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, thanks so much, man.
Awesome.
I'm so impressed and inspired by you and everything you've done. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Love chatting with you, Clint, and look forward to keep it going.